at you. We are here with the No Faces Comic Chat. We got a little bit of a different stream going on today because, well, I guess Google and Hangouts and everything else decided to cut all that crap out. So, so there's not much we can do about that. So we're using the StreamYard, and we're going to see how this goes. Hopefully everybody can hear us and see us and all this good stuff. So let's see. Can everybody hear us, or are we on there? I think there's quite a bit of lag on this one now. So whereas before we had maybe a 4 or 5 second lag, I think now it's at least 10 seconds from when we start to when it actually kicks in. So bear with us on that. Already in the chat, we've got Alex Comic Hoarder was here early, and so we're glad to have him. We had he picked up an awesome book. Did he show you that book, DS, on private message?
Yeah, I talked to him earlier about a bunch of books. So I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but me and him, we talked about a bunch of books earlier, so I'm sure it was in the mix of ones I saw. Yeah.
Cool. Well, he showed me one I was very, very excited to see. As you know, probably the one that I would be most excited to see. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't want to give it away. I'm sure he's going to show it in the hall soon. So, so I was really excited. I was so excited that I'm going to try and pick up that whole run. It's my next run. So we'll see how it goes. We got Mr. Gretzky, 9966 in the house. We got KBDM. And we got, let's see, we got Rayman, the Silencer Man's here. We got the Comic Collector. Welcome, guys. And Area 51 Mike's in the house. Werewolf by Lunchtime is here from Australia, not New Zealand. I give Roger a hard time because he likes to correct me and things. So every now and then when he gets something wrong, I really hammer him on it. So he can't remember. He always wants to think that Werewolf by Lunchtime is from New Zealand. So I just mess with him. We got Unruly Simeon. We got Michael Dodds in the house. They say they can hear us clearly. That's good. So it looks like everything appears to be functional. And then also, that's right, Gretzky. What's up, Alex? We got no Roger tonight. He may come in later in the evening. I think he's on a travel day. So hopefully he will be able to make it. I guess it depends how long we run. But we'll see how it goes. Hope to have him in. I know that this is different in the StreamYard. A lot of people have been using this lately. The main reason that I did not jump on the StreamYard stuff earlier, like 2 weeks ago when everybody was doing their test runs, is because it doesn't automatically switch between feeds. So, and we're a No Faces chat, so you're not going to know who's talking. So hopefully, DS, say hello and wave your hand.
Hey, everyone. I am now talking and glad everyone's here. And yeah, and since Roger's not here, we can move our hands like this. We can get sock puppets or something. But I don't know. I mean, I usually have, my phone up while I'm playing with it while I'm on here or whatever. So I got the chat running on here. It's not going to make it easier to know when I'm talking, but Yeah. No, one thing I don't like about it is I have an Apple computer. This laptop's an Apple. I usually run Safari for web browsing. I try to stay away from anything PC related, anything Google related. I have to run Google Chrome to run this. So now I feel like I'm exposed. I don't like being connected to Google for anything. So this is not. This is making me a little leery to be on here, to be honest. But we'll give it a shot.
Well, Google owns YouTube anyway, so you've been on Google for a while.
I know. I try to limit it. You can't cut everything out, but I try to limit my exposure. This is why I try to stay off the radar, man.
It sounds like we've got a new watcher in the chat. It says NovaMad1966 says new to the channel. Hanging out for a bit. Hey, everyone. So everybody wish him hello. Or he or she, I suppose. Novamag could be anything. Could be Mothers Against Drunk Driving from another planet. So we don't, we just don't know. And we got Comic Book NYC. So welcome. Wow, we got Bake the Snake in the house. Oh man, Slab Down. Did you catch Slab Down? That was pretty cool. You guys got to watch
No,
that.
I didn't catch it. There's, when I started on YouTube was around the same time you started, was like early. I don't know. I started like February of 2018, and there was already quite a few channels out there and people putting out content. But I feel like it's grown exponentially since then. It might just because I've been on here a while, but every time I load up the YouTube to see when I have time to watch a video, and I remember what the screen looked like the last time I logged on to see new videos, it has cleared everything on the page. It's an entire new page of squares of content from channels, and it's like there's no way I can keep up with it. If people put out some content in the morning, by the afternoon, it's way down the list. So I miss a lot, man. A lot of stuff falls down the hole for me. I don't get a lot of time to get on here. When I have time, I try to scroll back through. I'll pick random channels of people that I know I haven't seen in a while, and I'll just put some videos on while I'm doing some stuff. And even then, I don't have time to comment on everything. I usually will, load up somebody's channel, go to their videos, and click play all. And it'll start from their most recent, and it'll play, 3 or 4 videos of theirs. And I'll put that on the laptop on the side of the table while I process comics or do something comic related, usually in this room. I'll just let it play, and I'll catch it all and listen to it. And then I try to participate in live chats, a lot, because a lot of those are in the evening, and I try to participate in those as much as I can. But I've been missing a lot of those lately, and it's like every night there's multiple shows going. There's a lot of content out there, man. It's impossible to keep up on, but it's awesome because there's always something to check out.
Yes, I agree. It is very constant, constant new. And if you get behind a day, it's almost impossible to catch up. It seems. If you're behind 2 or 3 days, you just give up.
Yeah, I mean, I watched your video earlier today. I watched, and that was a pretty long video, but I felt like it was important. The whole second half was not really comic related, but it was important, and I really enjoyed it. But it was 45 minutes long, and so that's it. I watched that, and I didn't have time to watch any other videos. So you took up my whole time slot earlier today, and now my time slot now is being taken up by you again, essentially. So,
sorry about that.
My entire YouTube day.
Sorry about taking all of it from you. We've got a couple more people in the chat. Some I recognize, some I don't. Every now and then we get a couple of trolls in here, so hopefully we didn't pick up any of those tonight. So hi, Aaliyah, Comic Bros in the house. Welcome. And Area 51 says, I'm lucky. And he says, what does he say here? He says, I'm lucky that way. I work from home, so I have YouTube on all day. So that's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I'm off. Sometimes I'm off on Monday, and sometimes I'm not. Today, I was sort of halfway off. I may or may not have had to work. I was sort of like on call, but I was here, so I was able to watch some videos. But the only other day I'm off is Tuesday, and I really like sometimes Silver Age Dave. I haven't seen him on here in a while. He's done something in a while, but he will throw a live show up in the middle of the early afternoon just for no reason. He'll just go live for like an hour, and I really dig that. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could work from home, and I would just have YouTube videos going 24/7 all the time while I was home.
That's cool. He when he goes live like that for an hour, that's his lunch hour. And,
is it?
Yeah, it's his lunch hour from one of his undisclosed locations, and he'll do a lunch hour, and it's always funny to me that he's cracking a Bud Light open at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for lunch.
Man. He's
lunch pop. Yeah, he is. He don't care.
Beer and during his lunch hour. That's awesome.
If you can't have a beer and still do your job, you just need to practice harder. So,
since Roger's not here, what were we going to talk about? 35-cent variants, Mighty Midget Comics, History of Shang-Chi, and minor bronze keys and variants, right? Isn't that the topic for tonight?
Yes, and unheard of superheroes, and then also the infamous unknown crossovers. We're gonna have some of
Right,
those in there
right.
too.
If we tried to do that, the show would already be over because we have no knowledge compared to him on that stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about comics. What's our topic here?
All right. Tonight we got we're in the No Faces chat. What's our team name? I don't even remember that. Hold on, we gotta get to that. Yeah, the double cover creatures. That's it. And I put that on there because I actually don't own any double covers.
Well, I mean, I've never owned a double cover. I've never discovered one when I've purchased a lot or random books. And I see people all the time. They'll buy a lot of books or buy some raws, and they'll be going through them, and they'll be like, "Oh, I discovered this. So look at this has a double cover." Or sometimes people will just flat out buy a slab that says double cover. I have never owned one. I have never found one. I have never held one in my hands ever. I mean, I haven't handled millions of books, but I would figure by now I would have come across one at some point, but never had a double cover in my hands.
Yeah, me neither. I've never seen one in the wild. I've never even gone through someone else's collection and been able to experience them. So, I really would like to hold one. And it's one of those things where I have a real hard time, and I promise we won't dwell on it. But that's one of those things where once you slab it, it kind of loses its magic, because a double cover can happen to any book, right? I mean, it can happen to any book at any time.
Well,
Doesn't
yeah,
have to be a key.
double covers all the way from spanning all the golden age stuff. In the silver age, there's double covers, bronze age, and then the copper age has quite a few. But once it gets to like 85, 90, 93, stuff like that, and I start seeing double and triple covers, it's really sketchy to me, because production techniques and just the production technology for putting together comic books is super high tech once you get into the 90s and beyond. And there was a book on, I don't know if it was Comic Link or Comic Connect. It was an ASM 361. All right, so when we're talking about, like, what is that, 93 or something? And it had a sextuple cover. So it had six. You're going to tell me that just, that's sketchy. That's like almost somebody, it seems contrived. And then there's eBay sellers that have lots of items, and they will have, 20 or 25 books on there with double covers. And yeah, I don't know. I don't trust a double cover after, like, say 1990. After that, I start thinking the double covers, I don't buy them. So yeah. I don't know, but the only reason I would ever want a double cover would be to sell it, because to me, I don't really care about having a book with a double cover. I just want the book. But there's two good things about double covers that are great to flip. One is it's a double cover. People like having double covers. They're rare. They're cool. So it automatically adds value. And they grade the highest cover in with the book for grading. So if you have a 9.6 on the outside and the inside cover is a 9.8, they use the 9.8 cover into the grade to factor it. So you get a higher grade on your book. And if you're looking like high grade moderns, even bronze, you're always going to get a much higher grade overall on the book. So I would love, if I got a double cover, that would flip that thing so fast it'd make your head spin anyway. So this is probably why God has not rewarded me with a double cover, because I have no appreciation for them. I just would make money off them.
I believe you 100%. You'd flip that sucker faster than time you saw a piece of the next cover behind it in order to be off the CGC.
Yeah,
we got the Gray Man.
That 6 cover 361 that was on Comic Link, maybe last year, sold for like $13,000. Obviously, it was
wow,
but
that's wild. We got Splash Page Comics in the house, Mr. White Gloves. We got Comic Head 84 showing up. Hello, Kenny. We got Super Russ, Sup Russ. We got, oh man, this is great. We got a ton of Gray Man showing up. You guys are rocking and rolling. So let's get into the discussion here, DS. And if Roger shows up or whatever, then good deal. If not, we'll just keep rolling. What we got going on tonight is we're going to talk about, things that kind of scare us as comic collectors, the fears we have as comic I'll throw one out there.
Right.
some simple fears that I have when I pick up a book that I think may be of high value is does it have any color touch on it that I can't recognize, or any kind of restoration that I don't recognize right off the bat. That's one thing I worry about, because a lot of times when you buy books online, especially, they don't go page by page. And I've had books that had restoration on the interior that had nothing to do with the cover before as well. So I worry about that sometimes when I pick up a book. And rarely do I buy a book in person even and flip through every single page before I buy it.
Yeah, I don't do that either.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, resto is a fear in the comic hobby for everyone that buys raw books. And the older the book is, the more prevalent that fear is. And then when you're collecting Golden Age books, it's there for every book that you buy. And that's why I preferably buy, for big books, I try to buy, slabs. I try to buy CGC blue labels, because if they didn't find any restoration, then there's 99.9% chance there is none. Because, a lot of the guys that work at CGC, that, the higher up guys that work at CGC, they worked in comic book restoration industry prior to working at CGC. And really, it's not that hard to identify restoration. So I trust that if they didn't find it, there isn't any. But man, I buy a lot of raws in the Golden Age. And yeah, one of my big fears is that there's restoration on it. Now, probably like most people, most of my purchases come from online. So I have a couple requirements. I want a reputable seller. Doesn't matter if it's eBay or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. Some have a higher percentages of reputable sellers than others, but I try to get a reputable seller, and I try to have good photos, and I will ask questions. And sometimes everything looks legit, and I'll just ask a question I know the answer to, just to see if I get a quick response from the seller. Because if they just quickly respond, then that tells me that they're on top of their selling business overall, if they're on top of communication. So color touch, I've learned, is very easy to find. I don't worry about that. The one thing that makes me super paranoid is trimming. And in Golden Age, it's not like you get another book and match it up to another issue to see if it lines up. Even if you could do that, even if you had multiple copies, or even if you looked at scans, the cuts on each issue, on each copy of a single issue, are totally different. They don't match up. They're different sizes. It's impossible, literally impossible to tell from photos, no matter what, if a book is trimmed or not. It's impossible to tell from photos. Even when you get it in your hands, I'm super paranoid about trimming, because especially for Golden Age books, there's miscuts left and right, and vertical, horizontal, the wraps are weird. There's some, like this one here that I got today. The cut goes right to the E. And actually all these are from the same title, and you can see the cut here goes all the way to the E. On the other two, it's not. This one's pretty well centered. But you can see on this black one, Suspense 8, there's not much room on the side there. It cuts off the foot down here. Yeah, I'm always paranoid about trimming. I always am scared that books are trimmed, but I have never gotten a book back from CGC yet that had any resto on it, and of course not trimming either. So, but yes, that's one of my greatest fears.
Yeah, I hear you. And Area 51, Mike and others are saying Scotch tape is the enemy. I didn't know that was such a huge fear. Like, I always thought, well, I say always. So when I first got back into collecting, I would be pulling books out, and I would think, I hear everybody talking about tape pulls. They just must be idiots, because I've never caught a piece of tape on a book. And then, of course, I caught a piece of tape on a book, and I was freaking mortified. And I was like, how do I get this off? And it was horrible. And I've done it maybe 2 or 3 times to 2 or 3 books, and it's horrible every time it happens. So
yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Scotch tape. All right, so I got this book recently. I was cleaning this last night, and the way I tape my bags and boards is I put a tab. Oh, is this going to show up? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. All right, I have a tab, so I can fold this out here, and so when I pull that down, the tape stays on the back, and then I can lift the flap. Okay, so
Nice.
so I did that, but this must have got tucked back in and caught the tape. So when I opened it, I didn't realize the tape was kind of jacked. I'm not sure what happened. It's the first time it happened, but I got a beautiful little tape pull on my book last night. You believe that crap?
Oh, right on the sharks.
I know. I'm so careful, and I've got a tape pull last night. It just goes to show it can happen to anyone, and Mike is right that Scotch tape can be the enemy. There's a nice tape pull right on the eye in comics, and that, and then my first thought was, man, I could just color that in with a red marker and it would look better.
Bad.
Yeah, so and I'm super careful. I have a system where I tape these, so I'm not sure how that tape got there, how I didn't notice it, but you know, that's the first time that's happened to me since I was younger, like, you know, 17. I'm ultra careful, so I've gone, you know, 25 years, 26 years without having a tape pull. There we go. I had one last night on a really cool, rare book too. So yes, Scotch tape. I'm always afraid of tape pulls, and I'm super careful. And then I got one last night.
Wow, I hate that for you, man. My heart sank when you pointed at that.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, another thing about Scotch tape is when I buy books, like this Suspense 8, actually, I bought it from Metropolis a couple years ago. And, you know, they said it was 2.5, I think, and it looked good. It came back at 3, but a nice page quality. It was what they described. On the interior, there's tape on the interior. I don't know if that bothers other collectors. I personally don't care on Golden Age books if there's tape. I mean, unless it's like, you know, ugly. But if there's tape on a book, you know, you don't always know it until you get the book. I don't really care if I find tape on a book. But the thing about tape that bothers me is I'm worried about tape pulls, and that happened last night. But tape is often not disclosed and often not known, and sometimes not easy to see. You really have to inspect every page and inside by the spine very carefully. And sometimes you'll find a piece of tape. It's not restoration. I know some collectors hate tape on their comics. I personally don't care. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I don't mind tape. I think it's pretty commonly, as far as restoration goes, I think it's pretty commonly accepted as a normal way to preserve books, to preserve the pages to stay together. So tape doesn't bother me. Sometimes, like if it's like masking tape, that bothers me, you know. So that really gets me. If it's masking tape or something that really hides the color, but tape on the interior, where they put it like behind the cover and then put the cover back over it to seal, like just to seal a tear.
Yeah,
I'm totally good with that, and I prefer it, you know. So Bad Dad says he uses painter's tape. Oh, by the way, Bad Dad's in the house. Lady Fantastic is here. We've got Bit Biter. 0101 is here. He's somewhat local to me. Man from B Town. We've got Caleb Comic Smurf Murphy's in the house. You guys are just awesome. Thank you for joining us. Of course, Lady Fantastic, an alum of the show now. Glad she was on last week. Hope y'all got to catch that. If not, check it on the rewind.
There's a good question here. Biggie Shack's asking if we ever pulled tape off a book and not damage your book. Here's my experience with tape. The older the tape is, the easier it comes off because the adhesive over time just disintegrates like everything else does. And if you have really old tape from a Golden Age book that was put there in the 40s and the tape's been on there since the 1940s and it's got that brown look, a lot of times you can just, you know, pick at it and it will just sort of peel off with no damage, and it will just leave a different color pattern where the tape was, because that part was protected from air and dust and sunlight to some extent. So it'll still look different. You'll be able to tell it was there. But old tape comes off pretty easy. Bub, didn't you have what was that book you had that had tape on it or something, and you just pulled it right off? That was like a bronze book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my Tomb of Dracula #1. I had a Tomb of Dracula #1, and it had tape on the spine, and it had a price sticker right over the Marvel area, you know, where it said everything. And it just kind of fell off while I was rubbing it. And I took a backing board and just kind of slowly kind of shaved it off, and the whole thing came off. It turned to dust. It was so old. So it was awesome.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it left all the color.
That was a 70s book, like 71 or 72. So that was, you know, if you get books from the 40s, somebody else in here said it discolors the paper. Yeah, I mean, the adhesive binds with the paper, so you'll be able to tell there was tape if you get it off, but you can get the tape off. I normally just leave it, and, you know, I don't mess with it anyway. But Caleb is saying you can use a little heat to get the tape off. You can also use a little heat to get the glue off. I bought one of these. It seems to be, and this is very limited experience, so take this with a grain of salt and go research it yourself. But the older an adhesive is, the less it will work. If you heat it up and then let it cool, it's sort of like the adhesive doesn't re-adhere. Once you heat it up, it'll come off. It'll loosen its grip on the paper, glue or tape. And then when it cools down, it doesn't re-adhere. It's like it's beat. It's done. It's held up its job for so long, it can't do it anymore. And then once it dries, you can just scrape it off. If it's glue or tape, should come right off. I did it once with glue, and it worked. It flaked off pretty good. So yeah, I invested in one of these so I can do that from time to time. I've researched it, and I tried it once, and it worked. So yeah, I think Caleb's right.
Well, what's funny to me is that I know that, like you said, certain tapes work differently. What about cellotape? Cellotape tends to just crack off, and then it leaves like the layer of glue underneath and behind, but the tape itself kind of just falls off. You notice that?
Yeah, I mean, sellotape is more prevalent on older books. I don't even know if sellotape is something that people still use or not. I mean, I just use Scotch tape and blue painter's tape, so I don't know. I know the tape you're talking about, and that stuff's easy to come off. But again, anything you take off that or any other type of tape is going to leave a stain or a discoloration, and it's a combination of the chemicals in the adhesive binding with the paper, and also the paper has not uniformly been exposed to the elements because it's been protected to some degree by the tape. So you're always going to be able to tell it was there. You know, people spend money to get tape removed, by professionals, and, good for them. They don't want tape on their books. I don't personally care. This book has tape holding the front cover and the back cover together. Yeah, good, whatever. I mean, in a book from the 40s with tape on it, I don't really care. And actually, whenever I see a book I want in an auction or something, a Golden Age book in a slab, and it says tape on interior cover and interior or something on the label, I always think, good, maybe I can get this a little cheaper because the tape haters out there won't bid on this. So,
yeah, I agree. That would be good too. If whenever I see a book that's, of course, I'm taking it to the extreme. When I see a book cover detached, I get excited. The only thing better would be completely a 100% spine split and completely where like you see just a stack of paper just thrown out on the desk. I get real excited when that happens. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna win this book. Yep. Nobody wants this crap as bad as me.
No, I mean, there's something to be said for having a complete book if it's got issues of it not being bound perfectly together anymore. It's still the complete book, and some people won't touch it, and I'm one of them mostly, that if a cover's detached or if it's split or something, I don't want that. I like my books to be together, and sometimes they're together with tape, but most of the time I just prefer them to be bound to the staples. So yeah, when you get books like that, Bub, there's people that will stay away entirely, and you can get them, people will list them even super cheap, and you can score complete rare books cheap if you're cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, I am. Basically, if the cover is intact, and I don't mean connected to the back of it, I just mean if the front of the cover is intact and all the major artwork and writing is there, that's the most important thing to me, especially on a Golden Age book. Now, if it's a key book, a more modern key, or even especially a copper key or something like that, then I want the entire book. I don't think I should have to settle. But in the price range that I like to spend on Golden Age books, I definitely want to see the front cover, and then after that, I'm pretty good. Whatever. Anything after that is extra.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Biggie Shack's asking, what about staples? I'm not sure what about staples. What about staples? But overall, for staples, for me, and this is if you're going to buy, and when I talk about books, I'm basically talking about Golden Age because that's what I collect. So, everybody probably knows that by now. But any issues with staples, essentially, if you want to buy a Golden Age book to get the maximum investment value out of it, staples is a very primary concern among Golden Age collectors. I'm way up the list, but I'm not so OCD about staples. But rusty staples are bad for Golden Age books. People don't want books with rusty staples. It's going to hurt the value going forward. That's the most important thing. If the staples are rusty, and especially if the rust is already starting to bleed, then you've got a book that has severely limited investment value going forward, because Golden Age collectors don't want rusty staples. I'm one of them. I don't buy books with rusty staples. Sometimes, oftentimes staples have a little discoloration. It depends how bad it is, but rusty, I say no. I like everything to be attached to the staples. That's a lesser concern generally. If the cover is detached from one staple, I'm okay with it depending on the book. If it's detached from both staples, I'm not cool with it. And a lot of collectors are not. So I would say rusty staples and stuff and detached from staples would be the two main concerns that will hurt value going forward on Golden Age books. It's hard to find perfectly shiny staples on Golden Age books, but it's not as hard as one might think. I mean, if you're going for rare books, you got to get what you can get. But the staples on all three of these books, they're all from 1944 and 45. All the staples are nice, and I wouldn't call them shiny, but they're still metallic. There's no discoloration on these staples. So, yeah, it can be done.
Yeah, I know I had on that same book, my Tomb of Dracula #1, what's his name? Dr. Von Chilla was wanting me real bad to do a staple replacement on that book, because it does have the beginnings of rust on that book, and it's very obvious when you look at it. Even though I fixed the spine roll and I pressed the book, it looks pretty good, but it still has those staples. And if I could replace those staples with, accurate staples from that same production month, then that book would pretty much be perfect again.
Well, have you replaced any staples on any of your books?
No, I've never replaced any staples. I wanted to try just so I'd know what was entailed, but I've never done it. I hear it's quite difficult.
It's difficult. I haven't done it, but I've thought about it and I've read about it. I think you can replace staples. It's pretty easy to replace the staples, and it's not a bad idea if staples are rusty and starting to bleed, or even before they start to bleed, if they're clearly rusted past the point of saving. Not a bad idea to get those staples replaced, because going forward, a book with replaced staples is going to maintain value better than a book with rusty staples that's going to bleed into the pages over time. You're going to have a book with rusted, bleeding staples versus a book with nice staples that have been replaced. It's a restored grade versus a blue label, or it's a conserved grade versus a blue label with a rusty, ugly staples. I would go for the conserved book. I have one book that has the staples replaced, and I've kept it. I haven't sold it because it's not that huge of a deal. But to replace the staples, you need to get staples from the time period. You need to get them to fit. You need to get the old staples out without damaging the paper, which is difficult but not impossible to do. Then you need to get staples from the same time period to put in there, and you have to have them match up the indentations exactly. And that part is almost impossible to do, because there's indentations and there's wear and there's darkened marks where the staples are on these pages on Golden Age books. You're never going to perfectly replicate that with new staples being put in. And any discoloration that's there is going to be clear it came from other staples, because the staples that are there now don't have any. Even staples that are in good shape will have some discoloration to the paper and the indentations and the holes. It's not going to line up perfectly. Have people done it and got away with it and you can't tell? Probably, yeah. I mean, anything's done enough times, eventually it will go right. So I don't know. I mean, replacing rusty staples gets you a conserved grade. I think that's better than letting the rust bleed into the books forever.
I agree with that. And what's funny is I guess we kind of got off on restoration a little bit, but that's something you could be worried about too. So you pull a book or you buy a book online and you might be worried that it has replaced staples. If you're against that could be a big issue. It certainly affects the label of the book if it gets graded. So that makes a difference. Anything that changes that label can be viewed as critical to a collector, and certainly moves the price needle.
Yeah, and another thing to consider, I mean, none of this stuff is what I recommend or what I personally do, but there are people who sometimes, maybe happens now, but it's happened in the past when people were owning the books like in the 50s and 60s. They'll remove the staples and they'll add their own they'll restaple the book and take out the old staples. You're not going to get a restoration label for that. You're not even going to get a conservation label for that because you haven't replaced the staples. It will say staples removed or staples added that are not manufacturing staples. So you can still get a blue label on a Golden Age book if it's missing the staples entirely and somebody has restapled the book, or if they're just missing, or if there's extra staples. You'll still get a blue label. It affects the book because it's considered a defect, but it'll note on the label staples added after manufacturing or original staples missing or something. So, something to think about staples as opposed to trying to replace them exactly and getting a conserved label. Or sometimes they're taken out completely or new ones are added on. There's a lot of different staple issues. Bottom line, it's good to have a book attached to the staples and not have rust. So whatever you can do to avoid the rust and keep the book connected, do the best of that, I guess, is what you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. I worry, and I know that you don't have this issue, and this is kind of switching gears a little bit, but I worry about comic shops closing because I don't want to pay shipping for backing boards. Like, if there was a comic store that could stay afloat, not selling any comics, but just selling supplies, that would be awesome because the shipping on supplies is ridiculous. And I kind of lean on comic shops to be able to get some supplies. And if I can't get them there, then the shipping adds up so fast. So I worry about comic shops closing, not because I don't want to miss out on the latest issue of whatever's out there, Faith number 69 or whatever they got going on. I don't worry about missing out on that, but I do worry that I'll have to pay like $16 for a pack of boards. So,
well, I mean, I have Amazon Prime. I get all my supplies off Amazon and I never pay for shipping. It's always free shipping for those items as a Prime member. So if anybody's, and they also have a streaming service that's like Netflix, but it has far more stuff on it to watch. So it's actually better, in my opinion, than Netflix. And if you sign up for Amazon Prime, it's like, I don't know, $10 a month or something. It's nominal. And you get the streaming service, which is like Netflix, and you're a Prime member. So almost 90% of what you buy on Amazon, you get free shipping as a Prime member. And it tells you which ones, when you search for something on Amazon, it gives you a whole list of different options to get that item from wherever. And you can pick one that has free shipping as a Prime member. So I get all of my comic supplies from Amazon and I never pay for shipping. Always free shipping.
Well, I do too. I get a lot of my supplies on Amazon as well, but the boards, they raise the price, even on Prime, they raise the price $7 and then tell you that you're getting free shipping. So I can go into a shop and buy a thing of boards for $10 or so.
All right,
or I can go on Amazon and get it for $17 with free shipping. It's not really helping me out.
I don't know if I'm buying that. Let me see. I just placed an order. Let me see how much I paid for. I ran out of Silver Age bags, so I bought Silver Age bags. Let me see here.
I mean, I do use Amazon too for top loaders. Like when I buy top loaders, I use them a lot. I bought my price guide off there too. And I don't know if I've ever crossed the line on buying a comic on there yet. I don't think so, but I've come awful close. I've had them in my carts and got scared and pulled them out because they don't give you an actual picture of the book you're buying. It's like a stock image. So it can be pretty sketchy.
All right, so here it is. I bought one pack of BCW Silver Age bags, poly bags, 100 count BCW poly Silver Age bags. It was $10.60. The sales tax was 56 cents. Shipping was free. I paid $11.16 for 100 Silver Age bags, poly bags. That's you're not going to get that much cheaper at a shop, and you're going to have to drive over to the shop, and it takes time.
It's the boards. I'm telling you, the bags I'll buy online. I don't care. I do buy my bags online. It's the boards because they're so heavy. And a lot of places that you go, like I think Bueller, he pushes the Max Pro supplies. And if you buy ever so much, they'll give you free shipping. But it doesn't count if you buy boards because boards are so heavy. They just charge you more to ship them.
All right. Well, before that, I bought 100 count Silver Age bags and 100 count backer boards, $17.49.
That's pretty good.
And it was free shipping. And I paid tax. The total was $18.54 with tax, free shipping. That was cheaper per package than the other one because this is only like $9.27 for each of those items. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's cheap, dude. And really, it could be $15 each. I'd still be fine with it even if you were right, which I don't think you are about this, but if you were right, I would still do it because it saves me time and it's a minimal expense for the value of the books. And it's just it's part of what's that word I always use? Like in a museum, a curator. It's part of the curating of your collection to have the proper supplies, and it costs a little bit of money to curate your collection properly. But I'm telling you, Amazon Prime, now, yeah, I pay $10 or $12 a month for Amazon Prime, but I get that Netflix practically streaming service, the Amazon Prime streaming service. That alone is worth the cost of admission, and then I get free shipping on practically everything. So I don't know, something to check out if anybody's interested. We'll just say Bub might be right or not, but let people go check it out for themselves. And I do it. I think it's worthwhile. I could do it from my home. And what Amazon does now, they track the pattern of your orders. So they know my frequency of ordering supplies. They have an algorithm that has those things delivered to the nearest Amazon thing ready for me because they know I'm going to order those coming up in a certain frequency. They come to my house. The one time I ordered them, they arrived the next day within 24 hours. Usually it's within 48 hours. And it'll come on a Sunday. So, yeah, we're straight.
Like I said, you're not worried about your comic shop closing. Although, I will say this. You alerted me to which comic shop is near you, and I subbed them up on Instagram. And they had plenty of books. Like, I was shocked. Like, the way you talk about your LCS, I just assumed it was like a real, because I've been to some of those LCSs that were real crap holes. I got like, a spinner rack of bent books and that's it. But your LCS seemed to have a lot of books. They just didn't have any golden, not a lot of, long boxes of back issues. So I could see that for where you are as a collector, they're almost useless to you.
Well, they have no gold. They have no silver. And anything, they have some bronze and up. And anything worth more than $14, I think it is, or $20. I can't remember. It's either $14 or $20 value. They keep in the back. So if you just want to browse through their boxes, there's nothing of value in there, and there's nothing Silver Age or back. And their wall books, I've showed you pictures of their wall books. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. Non-key dollar bin sort of material with some very, very minor sort of copper keys, and that's their wall books. And the last time in their glass case, they had some Disney stuff. Before that, they had some Jimmy Olsen issues, which, theirs are Silver Age. They had Silver Age Disney books. Not Disney, like Disney characters and cartoon characters like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. Like late Silver Age of that in their glass case up front. So, yeah, I mean, look, if you have kids that you want to go to the comic shop and they want to buy some cool toys or action figures or games or get some cool, they have all the new comics, the stuff that comes out every week. Yeah, I mean, if you like that stuff, then, it's a cool place to go on Free Comic Book Day with the kids. But for me, there's, there's no reason for me to go there because they have nothing I'm interested in. But there's a lot of people that go there. They've been in business for a long time. So, they have a clientele that appreciate what they have to offer. I am just not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I know how that is, and because when I go to some of the modern shops in my area, and they're completely modern books, and I look in, they have tons of people there, and nothing that I want, but everybody else seems really really happy, you know, and they're like smiling like little idiots and holding like 50 pops under their arms, under their wings. And they're all happy, and I'm like, really, this sucks. I'm leaving. Thanks. You got any boards? They're like, no, we're out of boards. Like, it's the only thing I use you people for when I leave,
Well, I used to buy bags and boards from them, but they use the ones they supply are a different brand that I don't like. The flaps, there's an overlap on the flap when you flap it over. There's an overlap on the back of the bag that's like an overhang, so it makes like an extra little mini flap that it doesn't fit tightly, and it's not. I don't know what brand they are, but so I stopped doing. That's when I started ordering them online a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple people in the chat. You can see the different ways collectors handle their supplies. Area 51 bought 100 used boards for $10.
A thousand
used boards for $10, and then I'm scrolling down further, and Splash Page Comics buys 1,000 Mylars and boards at a time from E. Gerber, which he didn't put the price, probably because there was left for him to put that price in, because Mylars are expensive. I don't buy Mylars because everything gets slabbed. I'm not spending money on Mylars. But if I were collecting raw books, I would definitely go for Mylars. But Mylars are expensive, man. You can imagine the difference in price between 1,000 Mylars and then what Area 51's getting buying 1,000 used boards. So yeah, I mean, you can spend a ton on supplies, or you can spend virtually nothing on supplies. But in my view, you've got to spend some. You've got to put some effort and some focus on supplies. It's very important if you're collecting like we are and you're hardcore about it. You've got to spend something and make sure you have the proper supplies to care for your books.
Yeah, I agree. I have every book I have is in Mylar. I don't. If I'm going to buy a book and it's not good enough to go on Mylar, then I probably shouldn't be buying the book. That's the way that I rationale it. And I never say, well, they say Mylars are expensive, but if you're looking at it that way and the book isn't worth the Mylar, then I'll just let someone else enjoy it. I won't buy it. Someone else can buy it, and I just move on. Yeah,
so I mean, if your Mylar costs more than the book, it's probably not worth it to buy the Mylar.
Yeah, but if I like the book well enough to think that I like the book so well that it's worth the $1.50 investment above whatever I bought the book for, if it's not worth that, then why did I buy the book? Yeah. If I'm not gonna enjoy the book enough to protect it and display it, because it makes them look pretty, right? To protect it and display it the way that I want it to look, then why am I buying the book? I don't need the book. Someone else can buy the book. Because if I'm just going to get it, leave it in its old nasty, crusty poly bag, or just put it in another poly bag and wait for it to get nasty and crusty, then I'm not doing anything for myself long term. And when I go to sell those books, they're way easier to sell because, I take most of my books I sell to comic shops. I'll take, books I'm done with and pack them to the shop and trade them for store credit or just sell them off outright. And when I do that, when they see that whole like short box full of nothing but Mylar comics, I get top dollar for those books.
Yeah, and you're reminding me of a few things. I'm going to go off on a Mylar rant now.
No.
When it comes down, Bub, you'll know it was because of the Mylar rant I'm about to give. But aside from the fact that I don't use Mylars because I don't feel like investing the money in books that I'm just planning on getting slabbed anyway, I don't like Mylars for a couple reasons. Number one, I don't like buying books that are in Mylars, especially at a con or at a shop, because you can't judge the condition. Mylars make everything look mint. I hate that. I don't like books in Mylars when I buy them because you can't tell the condition. I really don't like buying books that are in Mylar. I'll just say that. They look great, and that's the problem. When you're buying older books and Golden Age books and they're in Mylar, everything looks like a 7.5 or an 8.0. Now, I don't like that. I don't want to have to pull every book out of the Mylar and go through them. So that's one thing. The other thing is for Golden Age books, Mylars are very stiff. That flap doesn't open all the way, and it can catch, books like these that are low grade, particularly this one or this one. There's a lot of little pieces hanging off. There's a lot of little tears and dings and divots on the edges of these comics. And a Mylar is like a slicer. You pull that book in and out of Mylar, it can catch and slice pieces off the book. And it's very dangerous for me, I think, to have Golden Age books in, VG or less condition and be moving them in and out of Mylars, because the Mylars don't give. They're stiff, and they will cut and slice and hack away at the edges of Golden Age books. And I won't put my Golden Age books anywhere near Mylars. They're stiff, and it's like a hacksaw going up and down the side of that. And I've had them before where there'll be a little cut, a little tear on the side of the book, and the Mylar will catch on that, and it slices further into it. And so I wouldn't put some of this lower grade Golden Age in Mylars anyway, even if I were a raw collector. But I don't like buying books in Mylars because you can't judge the condition. But if you're displaying them, it looks great. But whenever I'm at a con and they got all these books in Mylars, then I have to take them out. And if it's Golden Age stuff, then I'm worried that I might damage it by taking it out of the Mylar. And a lot of times, if it's a book I'm not hardcore about, I just pass. There's so many books out there. I'll pass on one that might be a lower grade in a Mylar on the wall that has a price. So anyway, that's my Mylar rant.
Yeah, and I think I can appreciate that because I've known you long enough to know what you're talking about, and I've seen you in action at the con. But I can also say that as you are, I'm sure are aware, is a minority opinion.
Yeah, I have a lot of those. I have no shortage of minority opinions.
I know. So, and it works for me when I'm selling books to the shop. I've had the shop tell me point blank, and I don't advertise them like, hey, these are in Mylars. You should buy my dollar books because they're in Mylars. But they'll tell me, well, the Mylar alone is worth a couple of bucks. So, yeah, I'll give you – basically, I can take as many books as I want to the shop, times that number by 2, and be guaranteed to at least get that much back. Yeah, so that's pretty good.
Well, yeah, Caleb's doing that too. He's got a flea market spot where all the books are $1, and when he sees one in a Mylar, he buys it because the Mylar is worth that, and the book is worth a little. You make money just on the Mylars then.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Those splash page comics, very knowledgeable, by the way. There is a way to load a book in a Mylar and to pull out using 2 boards. Yeah, there is, and what I'm saying is that's entirely correct. I don't feel like I need to do that much work for the books. I'm not going to double board them and use a sandwich in and out of a Mylar. I'm done with Mylars. That's all. I'm not going to deal with it. But yes, you can do that, and even in polys, I have one right now. I've already cleaned it up. It's getting ready to go to CGC. It's rough. I mean, it's a fully attached. If you see my Instagram, it's that Witchcraft 2. The yellow one with the skull cover, and it's got a guy and a girl in each eye of the skull, and it's a yellow cover with a big skull in the middle. It's on my Instagram a couple days ago. That one's fully attached, but it's rough, and the seller sent it to me sandwiched between boards in the poly, and I removed it with both boards, obviously. And as I was inspecting it, I realized how fragile it was. It is fully attached, but it's not going to stay that way if I handle it too much. So I sandwiched it back in the boards to put it to rebag it and send it to CG. And I'm going to send it to CGC with a note to tell them to be extremely careful, which they should be anyway. But I feel easier to sleep at night if I put that note on there. So yeah, there's a way to do it, but I feel like I don't have to have so much attention to the possibility of a bag damaging my book if I use polys. Because even a tattered book going against the edge of a poly flap, the poly flap just moves out of the way because they're flimsy. And I like that for Golden Age books. So.
Well, that works for what we're talking about. So DS is afraid of Mylars. So we'll put that as a fear of Mylars.
Yeah,
damaging books.
Yes.
Damaging books.
And when I buy a book, a Golden Age book, and it comes to me in a Mylar from a seller that's very reputable and high end, and I appreciate the presentation. It's always awesome when you get a book from eBay that is packed well and shipped quick, not medium mail, and it arrives well protected, and then you finally get to it and it's in a Mylar. That seller gets excellent feedback. I will definitely buy from them again. But what I do is I get the scissors and I cut the flap off of the Mylar in sort of a curve going down across it, like a smile on the back on the front of the book. And that way, when I pull the book out, the flap is gone. I cut the flap off the Mylar. So, this is a Mylar that somebody else would probably be like, send to me, I'll reuse it. I destroy them. I ruin the Mylars whenever I get a Golden Age book and a Mylar. I cut the flap off and ruin the Mylar. So, yeah, I don't have a very good relationship with Mylars.
That's fair enough. I know how it is. I used to use resealable bags. And then I saw my son, he had a resealable bag because I was supplying him with them too. So he left the flap open one day and he had the bag turned over this way where the tape was basically showing. And because it only sticks to one side, sticks to the back of the bag.
Yeah.
So the flap doesn't have any glue on it or whatever, but the bag does. And then he laid the comic down on it. And
oh, yeah.
it totally big, all the way across, big strip ripped off the back of the comic, and he was devastated. As well he should have been. And I was like, oh, man, he wasn't paying attention. Then like a week later, I did it. And that was it. I had enough. I got rid of all those bags. And what was funny was that some of the first ones that I had put in, the flap was stuck. And when I was pulling and trying to, it's supposed to be resealable, right, and reopenable. And I was pulling and trying to get it off. And I ripped the whole bag apart. And that happened on several of them. And I was like, that's it. I'm out. I'm not doing resealables anymore. But I used to be a big fan of resealables.
I buy resealable. Let's see if I have one handy here. I buy resealable bags for my slabs. Again, I don't buy the Mylar ones. Even for slabs, I don't buy the Mylar ones. The Mylar ones, look, it's in a slab. It's well protected. I'm just trying to prevent the slab from getting scratches on it. So I don't need a Mylar for that because it's not a display thing. I mean, it's going to look good in the slab. Slab looks good no matter what. But the Mylars for slabs are really crunchy, and the corners, for one thing, I can't stand the noise. It's like nails on a chalkboard when you're moving the slabs back and forth and flipping through them in a box on the Mylar because it's so stiff it scratches along the side of the box. I hate that.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
They're really crispy, and the corners end up breaking off over time. They're too crispy and rigid. So even for slabs, I don't like Mylars. I buy polys, and I buy the resealable ones because I like the size. But even then, I put a piece of tape on it. I don't even use the resealable part. I just put a piece of tape like I do on a poly bag for a comic, and I don't use the resealable strip. This is still intact. I haven't taken the strip off. I just have a piece of tape on there with a tab up top, so I don't get a tape pull on the slab essentially. But that wouldn't do anything. So yeah, even for slabs, I don't use Mylars. Yeah,
I agree. I don't like the Mylars in my I don't like my slabs and Mylars either. They're already in a protective case. I don't see any sense in having a blurry case. Even the Mylars, they don't look exactly right because you get that double reflection between the Mylar and the acrylic of the case. And so that bothers me. And I don't like seeing that because I can't appreciate it. So anyway, a lot of that. What else are we afraid of, DS? Well, we were afraid that the stream wasn't going to go on tonight, but I think so far it's been working out well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I actually like it. I'm not sure what it's gonna look like with 3 people, but with 2, it's just side-by-side screens, and it's cool. It's working pretty good, I think.
I think the third one goes in the middle down like a triangle, So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll work.
Well, I think it'll be all right.
What else are we afraid of? I'll tell you one thing I'm really afraid of, and I have insurance, which covers this, although I've never had to make a claim. But whenever I send books to CGC or I buy high-end books from wherever, I'm always on edge. I have a lot of anxiety until they get to CGC or whatever I bought gets to me. Because during transit, I've had occasions where a book has been lost in post office limbo for, a month and a half. And I didn't know if I was going to receive it or not, and I've already paid for it. And it's not like it's an easy to replace book when I'm ordering that stuff. And, when I send books off to CGC, you can insure it through the post office. I have insurance for my collection, which will cover you for a loss of books in transit. Like if you buy a $20,000 book, which obviously I don't do, but if you buy a $20,000 book, you can't insure that much from the post office. They only insure up to like $5,000. But in any event, if it gets lost, my insurance will cover that because I already paid for it and it covers books in transit to me. But you know, I don't want to have to deal with that, so I don't want to lose the book. It's not like I'm buying, you know.
Yeah, in the end, you still don't have the book, and some of the books that you go after, it's not like they come up all the time.
Right. So I always have anxiety. Whenever I ship stuff to CGC, I put full insurance on it through the post office, but I know my insurance company is backing me up on it also. But I was still freaking out. I get the tracking number and I load it up, and I'll check the tracking several times a day so I know exactly when it's moving, where it's moving, and then once they sign for it, I still have anxiety because even though CGC has a post office box and they have somebody at their company that signs for it, it shows delivered, signed for by so-and-so. Until it shows up on their tracking on my submission page, then I know they're all safe. I have anxiety that whole time for that process. Or when I buy something, I'll watch the tracking. Until it gets in my hands, I have anxiety about it. So I'm always fearful that stuff. And I've had books that have been lost, like the seller sent it, and it got lost in limbo and it was just nowhere to be found. I opened a post office investigation. The seller helped me. He was really cooperative and helpful. And he opened an investigation and they looked into it and they're like, well, it should show up. We don't know where it is. And I'm like, all right, it's a book that's hard to find. So a month and a half later, it shows up at my door and it was well packed. It had a boot print on it. So I don't know where it ended up or who stepped on it during the transit, but it took a month and a half to get to me, and I finally got it. But man, that was a month and a half of some anxiety I had about that. So that's a fear I have, especially sending stuff to CGC. You know, the last package I sent, I listed, I don't know, $5,000 or $6,000 total for the package that I sent. You know, that's a lot of money for me, and if those books get lost, I'm out a lot. That's a lot for me. So I'm you know, was worried until they showed up.
Yeah, I have that feeling every time I buy something too, not just when I send stuff out. Or actually, I sold a book for $1,000, and it didn't get lost in the mail, but it took like 3 weeks to get there. It had been shipped to the wrong place, and it got posted all over the place. It was really messed up. And the buyer was really cool about it. And, you know, he checking with the post office. I'm checking with the post office. We're both making sure that we're watching it on both ends. I had signature confirmation and everything. And it just took 3 weeks to get there. And it was ridiculous. It took about a week to even move, like 3 hours from me.
Yeah.
It was horrible. We're freaking out, but it finally got there, thankfully. But yes, I have. I'll only ship certain ways now because of that. And then also, whenever here's a little pet peeve of mine. I'll throw this out there. It's not something I'm necessarily afraid of, but it bugs me that other people are. So, so when you buy something from eBay, we'll leave the rest out, right? We'll just focus on that. When you buy something from eBay, and if you buy $100 book or higher, in my opinion, or, you know, depending on your budget, maybe a $25 book is a big deal too. If you buy one of these books and you see that shipping is $3.25 or $2.75, please don't go on Instagram and post your bent envelope and say this seller didn't know what the hell they were doing. I can't believe they shipped it like that. Dude, you knew you were going to get bad shipping when you bought from that person. Also, what I do is I check all the other listings that person has. And a lot of times you get people that are like estate buyers or storage locker people.
Yeah.
And they're just buying massive amounts of crap, people that are cleaning out houses. And they don't know how to ship a comic. And I know that they don't know how to ship a comic because this is only one of 3 comics that they're selling this, and the rest is like teacups and, you know, vintage lamps and a broken phone and old teddy bears and Beanie Babies. You know, they just bought a bunch of crap. And if they don't sell comics regularly, I guarantee you they don't know how to pack a comic.
Yeah, and they often have some of the best stuff. I buy comics from those thrifty storage locker estate clean out people all the time because they always find cool golden age books. And yeah, this one I bought, this Suspense 2, ultra rare golden age book. I think this is the only one I've seen for sale in the last couple of years. There's only 9 on the census, and I don't know who has those who has those 9. This is not even one of them, it's CBCS. This seller had free shipping. So I'm not thinking, oh, okay, it says $2.95, so it's probably going to be media mail or something. It was free shipping and it wasn't a cheap book. He sent it media mail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He communicated with me after I purchased it and paid. He communicated, told me he was going to ship it the next day, told me he'd give me the tracking number, told me that he owned this book for 40 years. I mean, this is a guy who appreciates the value and the care for comics. I wasn't worried about it. Then I get the tracking number and I check the information and it's media mail. So whatever. I'm not too worried about media mail. It takes a little longer to get there, but you never know. You never know what you're going to get. I wanted to address something that Comic Books NYC said a while back in the chat. He said insurance covers higher amounts so long as you have signature on delivery. Yeah, this is another one of my fears. When I sell a book on eBay, the more expensive the book is, the more I fear that a seller is going to pull some a buyer is going to pull some shenanigans and say they didn't receive it, or it was damaged, they want money back,
Yeah.
or the slab was cracked, you need to pay me, or I never got the book. What I do as a practice now is anything over $500 that I sell and ship, I put insurance on it and I put a signature on it. Even sometimes a buyer will say, I don't want the signature. I do it anyway because it protects me. Because if it goes and it's delivered and they sign for it and then they say they didn't receive it, I can say, well, they signed for it in my defense of that case they opened, and I think I'll be all right. In any event, if you don't have a signature on it, your insurance covering your butt is not going to cover you if you're buying and selling and mailing and stuff without signatures. So yeah, anything over $500. I sold a ASM 238 in a 9/8 white pages CGC slab for like $1,100. I put insurance on it and I put a signature on it, and the buyer didn't want a signature. He said it wasn't necessary, and I said, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. So I did it. He contacted me after he received it and said the slab is cracked. Well, what can we do about it? And the way I pack things is it will survive the apocalypse. There's no way that got damaged in transit. I mean, I think it's virtually impossible. But I'm like, send me some pictures. He sent me pictures, and the corner is completely smashed apart, which is impossible the way I pack things. Impossible, literally. I've gone out and throw them up in the air and they come down, and do that a couple times to check it, and it's perfect. So I've tested this method. It works. I think he opened it, and this was a couple days after he received it. He opened it, and I think he dropped it on his cement floor in his basement or something and cracked it pretty bad and bashed the corner completely apart. And now he wants me to fix. He's like, well, I'll see if he'll do it. So you know what? I refunded him like $20 so he could get a reholder. Not because I thought he was right, but I think that's shenanigans. But what are you going to do? For $20, he might give me bad feedback. He might open a case. What I did was I gave him $20, told him that will cover a reholder at CGC, and then I blocked him. He's never allowed to buy from me again. Now, maybe he did or maybe not, but I don't mess around on eBay. If there's any issues, you're going on my blocked buyers list. So that's how I handle eBay stuff. But yeah, I put full insurance and signature on anything over $500, basically to cover my butt.
Yeah, I think that's the way to be, and that's how I am now too. Everything's getting sold, and I still like dealing with shops a lot because I like to sell and I like to buy in person as much as I can, and so I also like to sell in person, and it just eliminates all that. Oh, you didn't know anything, unless a book is missing parts or anything like that. Then there's an issue. Maybe I didn't realize it was missing or I forgot. But for the most part, you know exactly what you're looking at. You can take all the time you want to inspect it any which way you want, and you don't have to worry about that shady business where eBay always sides with the buyer in like every instance, and PayPal sides with the buyer. Everyone is buyer protection.
Yeah.
There's very little seller protection on eBay. And the flip side on Instagram and Facebook, and I know you don't do Facebook, but the flip side on Instagram and Facebook is the seller has ultimate protection and the buyer has no protection. So, I guess it depends where you want to sell and how you feel like.
Well, yeah, and not to. All right, so people who are buying, $500 to $2,000 books, Golden Age books, they seem to be a more reliable crew to sell to on eBay than people who are buying. It seems like the more modern a book is, the sketchier these buyers become. And, I'm not going to go into why that is or why I think it is or whatever, but I never have any problems when I ship Golden Age books. Buyers pay promptly. They give me good feedback. I don't ever have any issues with buyers for Golden Age books, no matter how expensive it is or whatever issues. It's always smooth. When I start selling, bronze books, usually pretty good. Sometimes payment is like 3 days. I have to open a case, and then as soon as I open it, they pay. That's annoying. You get into Copper Age and modern stuff, then you get people that do a buy it now and then they don't pay, or they win an auction and they go dark and you can't get a hold of them and they don't pay, or you get an ASM 238 and all of a sudden it got destroyed in your bomb-proof packaging. So I don't know what the deal is, but eBay is good. I use eBay a lot to buy and sell, and it's a really useful marketplace, but it has its issues. I've got that Black Cat 50. I'm not putting that on eBay because I don't want to take any risks with it. I will only sell that to somebody I know through some other venue, and I'm not dying to sell it, but it's out there, and I've talked to some people and I still have it. I haven't sold it, but I'm not putting that on eBay. But if I have a $1,500 book, I'll put that on eBay, and it's mostly Golden Age stuff. Yeah, Golden Age buyers on eBay seem pretty legit, and I don't really have any problems. It seems like the more modern they are, the more problems I have with buyers. And what I do, and I recommend this to everybody who sells on eBay, they have a blocked buyer list, and you can add people to your blocked buyers list. You can set requirements for who's allowed to bid on your items. If they have a case opened in the last 6 months, you can have them blocked from bidding on items. You can have anybody with negative feedback blocked. You can filter out who's allowed to bid on your items, and you can specifically block users from bidding on your items. So I use that, and I don't like to have to use that, but on eBay it's necessary. There's a lot of sketchy stuff on eBay, so you've got to really be very careful as a seller to protect yourself.
Yeah, I agree. What happens to me on Instagram, we're talking about fears. Whenever I buy something on Instagram or Facebook, my butthole puckers up for like 2 weeks because the books never come quickly, ever. And I'm always waiting, and it's almost happened to me once. I was this close to crossing the line with a seller, and it was actually on YouTube, and he had an Instagram presence as well. I was going to buy a book from him. It didn't work out. I ended up, I was going to buy it from him like the next week. I told him, don't hold it. I had to sell a couple things first. I was like, don't hold it. If somebody else buys it, no problem. He was like, man, the book's yours. Don't worry about it. I was like, all right. And then the time came, and I was like, hey, are you there? I couldn't get a hold of him. Finally got a hold of him, and it was like real sketchy, and I started getting a little weary. 2 days later, YouTube channel deleted and Instagram account deleted. I was like, whoa. So if I had sent this guy the money for this book, which was not a small amount, then what would have happened? Would I have ever got that book? And that always worries me. That always scares me. And Instagram and Facebook, to me, are the scariest places for me to buy books. Now, I've got some of my best deals on both those places, Instagram and Facebook. But as soon as I send the money, I'm nervous until the item arrives and I've checked it and it's the way it was supposed to be. I'm nervous the entire time. I'm freaking out. I hate it. So maybe, I need some of that buyer protection to make me feel a little better about the transaction. Plus, a lot of the Instagrammers, they'll ship like once a week, or Facebook, they'll ship like once. I buy a book on Monday and I don't get a tracking number on it for a week. It drives me crazy. And I feel like, do I text them and be like, hey, are you going to send it out? You're going to say, what's going on? And almost inevitably you get, I'm sorry, I was going to send it out yesterday, but I didn't. So I sent it out tomorrow. You're like, what the hell? You get some story about their grandkids and their dogs and everything going on. And it just strings along, seems like forever. And then every now and then you'll get like a request, especially on Facebook. You'll get like, hey, he'll like tag me in his new Facebook auctions when he hasn't even shipped my last book. I'm like, why would I give you more money if you haven't sent me the book that I bought from you a week ago?
Yeah, I remember that.
He's like, oh, well, in case you wanted to add books to it. I said, I told you then I wasn't going to add any books until I got this book. You got to build some kind of relationship. Like you said, if you're selling to somebody you know that person because you've done little small transactions and communications before you do a big sale. But on these Facebook and Instagram, sometimes you just got to jump on the sale and hope for the best, and these people string you along. So it drives me crazy. It's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
all bad, but you know.
on Instagram, I buy and sell on Instagram. But again, with Golden Age, it's sort of like it's a smaller community, and everybody, even if you don't know the person, you know of them. They're in the community, and there's sort of like the only time I don't worry about anything with a buying or selling on either side of that is Golden Age books on Instagram. I'm happy to pay friends and family, and I don't even worry about it because the person I buy it off of, I know they're going to ship it. It's going to be well protected because the people who are collecting the stuff that I'm collecting, that we move books around among each other in the Golden Age sort of community on Instagram. Yeah, it's a smaller group of people and it's very legit, and I never worry about it. I pay friends and family all the time. I ask for friends and family. Nobody in that community has ever questioned it. Nobody has ever asked for references. Nobody's ever like, oh, let me pay goods and services. I think one dude did once just because it was a big book and he hadn't bought off me. But yeah, I pay friends and family without a concern at all on Instagram. I wouldn't do that anywhere else unless I was, at a con and doing it on PayPal right there at the booth or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if it's a thing, if it's you have to also think about the risks of what I do. There's certain areas I consider where I can buy books. And if it gets to an area where it's risky buyers or risky venue like Facebook or something, I just consider that that's not a place that's available for me to buy books. I sort of put it out of my mind, like Facebook. That's not open to me. I will not consider going on Facebook. So I consider that's not a place to buy comic books. In my world, that does not exist as a marketplace for comics. Instagram, people I don't know, they could have the best book in the world, but I just consider that in my mind to be a place that's not available for me to buy comics. So I've limited where I'm allowed to buy comics in my mind, but it makes the lowest risk for where I'm buying comics also. So I'm hardly ever getting screwed. Even on eBay, it's been a long time since I've had something shipped to me that was poorly packaged, because there could be a killer book, but if the seller has one negative feedback, I won't buy off of them. If their description has a bunch of typos, I won't buy off them. I want to see sellers that have their stuff together, that look legit throughout their description and their history and their feedback, and then they become an available option for me to buy off of. If they don't meet that requirement, I just consider that that's not a place I can buy books from. So I try to limit the risk as much as possible. But if you're buying and selling and flinging books all over the place with, willy-nilly with all sorts of buyers and sellers, you're going to run into more problems. But you're also going to get more benefit because you're going to be able to find more books also and sell more and whatever. So, it's just how much risk do you want to engage in for the books you want to buy or sell.
Yeah. I think that when you're kind of trying to broaden everything out and use as much of your available, like for me, I'm a bargain hunter. So I can't really rule out too many avenues of buying because you never know when the lowest book's going to show up, lowest price on a book's going to show up. If you're someone who's good with paying more market value, I think you can kind of limit, because most of the places that you buy from are going to sell close to market value or have an option for that, at least one book available for that. But for me, like when you look at the dive deep into the census and you look at, Go Collect, and you look at, what's that other price one everyone tries to always say, GPA. If you look at all that stuff, there's always outlying data, right? And there's always the far fringe and marginal instances of purchases. And if you look all the way to the left, you'll see somebody who bought something for like $100 less than market. I always try to be that guy. Like that's the number I focus on. The outlier, the most extremely low price. That's the price I'm looking for, because if it happened once, it might happen again. And I want to be that guy. Next year, when they show that, there's going to be two numbers down there, and I'm going to be the other guy that bought it. So that's the idea that I work on.
Yeah, but I think part of the enjoyment for you is getting the book, but it's almost a better book if you got it at the lowest of the GPAs, because you have a pride in negotiating, getting that lowest price, that becomes an integral part of the deal for you. That makes it that much sweeter. So, and you do a good job at it. I don't mind paying a little bit more for a book because by next year, all of those prices on GPA for a book X are going to be low. So I mean, if I pay an extra 10% now, what's the difference? It's going to be worth way more next year anyway. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and so when you're doing that, I'm looking on Facebook, I'm looking at Instagram, I look all over. So, but I'm also taking a chance with a lower amount of money every time I do that. And so I feel like I have to give up some security and give into that fear a little bit, because I know that whoever got the lowest price last year probably took a chance, rolled the dice a little bit in order to get that book at that price. So I know that that comes with it a little bit. It's just how much are you willing to give up? How long are you willing to wait? I bought a book on Instagram last week. Never saw it. Still waiting to see it. But it's someone I bought from before, and I know the guy takes his time shipping. And when I've pushed him before to be like, hey, is this sent out? I usually get a story about it. And it's not, I'm not complaining, but I just kind of already know. Another guy I buy off Facebook from, I know he says he only ships once a week. That's what he says. He says, because of my work schedule, I ship once a week. And usually that means twice. That means once every 2 weeks in real time, So
yeah, I'm usually fine with that. I mean, I don't really care when something gets shipped. I just care that it is packaged properly and that I get a tracking number, because I have anxiety about before it gets to me. I like to be able to have a tracking number. And when occasionally you get something when you don't get a tracking number, I hate that, because then I don't know when it's coming. I don't know when it was shipped. And it's also why, as a seller, I don't print off my own labels. I label all my boxes. I'm not labeling. I address them and I package everything. And then I manually drive the packages to the post office, get in line, go up to the counter, pay for the postage, and they put it on. I know it costs me a little more. You get a deal if you pay your postage and print off your labels at home. It saves a little time. But I like to do it old school. I bring the box to the post office. They type in the information, print the label out. I give them cash. They give me my change, and I get the receipt. And then when I get to the car with the receipt, I type the tracking number in. And when somebody goes to look up the tracking number that I've uploaded, it says received. You know what I mean? It's already there. It's not like you buy something on a Saturday night and then all of a sudden it says your item has shipped. No, it hasn't. They print out the label and it might sit there for 4 days. That doesn't mean
true.
Label created in a system, post office awaiting item or whatever. I don't do that. If you get a tracking number from me, it's because I already put it into the system. But it's all about risk. When I buy bronze books to flip, something will come up on eBay for $25 and I think it might be a $300 book. I'll look at the pictures. I think they undergraded it, or they don't know what they have, or I can make some money on it. I'll buy it. The risk is that I didn't look at the pictures close enough, or they weren't good enough, or it's just, it's not going to be packaged properly. There's risk. I understand that. But I'm looking for a big reward. But bigger books, I'm not looking for as big a reward on the other end, but I'm trying to lower the risk. So the less money it costs me, the more risk I'm willing to take. If somebody throws, I don't know, like a ASM 121 on eBay for $50 and they say high grade Spider-Man book, and they obviously don't know what they have and they list it at $50, I will look at the pictures quick. If the pictures look legit and I'll look at the seller's not from China, I'll buy it. Now, they might send it in a manila envelope and it'll get destroyed. I understand that's a risk, but for $50 for that book in a possibly 9.2 grade, it's worth the risk for me. So, it's all about how much risk you want to take. And, when there's more reward and less cost, I'm willing to take more risk. But higher end books, I limit the risk significantly because the payoff is not a flip, it's an investment. So I want low risk. So that's just my philosophy on risk, but it's all about risk. Buying and selling is all about risk.
I agree. But when we know what we're most afraid of and what we're deepest afraid of, it helps to kind of know which way to lean. I know now I've conditioned myself not to be as worried when a book takes forever to get to me. It probably is still going to get to me because I've bought so many times, and I don't think I've ever bought a book that didn't end up to me at some point. Sometimes it takes longer, gets lost, or tracking takes forever, but everything I've bought has got to me. So I'm able to relax a little bit when a book doesn't show up right away. It still angers me sometimes, but for the most part, I can relax.
Yeah, you remember the nervous wreck I was when I bought that ASM 129?
Yeah.
It was FedExed, and the FedEx delivery guy just grabbed the person that was outside when he parked the truck, and it was not my girlfriend, it was the neighbor. And he basically threw the package at her and made her sign. She didn't even know what was going on. Then he jumped back in the truck and he was off. And it showed delivered and signed for. And I didn't get it, and my girlfriend didn't get it, and nobody was home, and it was on the porch, but it shows delivered and signed for. And I was a nervous wreck for half the day till I could locate that, because that was not the biggest book ever, but it was like 8.5 white page ASM 129. That's a decent book. And
yeah,
I was a nervous wreck. I had to have somebody cover for me at work, and I left, and I walked up and down the street knocking on neighbors' doors, looking at if anybody had boxes on their porch to find out where this thing was. I was a wreck. And, that was like, what, $1,500 book or something. So,
yeah, but still, I mean, that was really the way that there was nothing to pull at. There were no good strings for you to pull out to find out what happened.
No,
everything seemed to be a dead end.
And it turns out my neighbor was the one who signed for it and took it with her. She was on her way out, and she's very reliable, and she knows me. So if I would have known for sure it was her, I wouldn't have freaked out as much. But I don't know. It just says signed for, and there's an illegible signature, and I had no idea where it was. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that was a rough time. I was worried for you, and I wasn't, I didn't have a dog in that fight, but I was like freaking out. And I don't mess with FedEx at all, because they're the only ones that ever leave packages on my front door.
Yeah.
Everybody else, I have a side door, I got a back door, I got, all kinds of doors. But I swear that FedEx picks a spot that's closest to the road, so they don't have to go as far. And so they just chuck it at my front door. Everybody knows I'm either home or not home if I got a big old package sitting on the front door and nobody picks it up. So it just drives me crazy.
Well, what I'm gonna do soon, and this is in the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna go get a PO box, and I'm just gonna start paying for a PO box and change everything over to that. And then anything that needs to be signed for or not will go to the PO box. And the post office knows me. I'm in there so much shipping stuff that if it doesn't fit in there, they're not gonna fold it and cram it in. They know that it's comics. So I'm gonna get a PO box and try to eliminate all of this issue.
That's
also FedEx has this thing where you can read. I do this now with FedEx. Whenever I get a package coming from FedEx, I have it redirected to the local Walgreens. And Walgreens has a thing now where they will hold packages from FedEx. You have it redirected there, and it will show delivered to the Walgreens. And you go in the Walgreens over to like the photo center, and they have all boxes and packages back there. And you say, hey, I'm here to pick up my FedEx package. And then they ask you for your ID, and they scan it, and you sign, and you take it. And it's delivered to a secure place at Walgreens. So I do that with FedEx now all the time. The only time you can't do it is CGC stuff, because it's registered. It can only go to the address that they send it to. So you've got to tell them ahead of time if you want it sent to a Walgreens, and I'm not comfortable doing that. So for CGC, I use post office for return shipping, and the post office knows me. And if I miss it and I'm not home, they put the little pink slip there, and I just go to the post office. As opposed to FedEx or UPS, it goes back to their distribution center.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy to go pick it up if you miss it.
No, and we found out one time too that UPS doesn't even, their tracking is fake. They don't actually track every package. Like, they don't scan it at each location. They do a they guess at where the package should be based on normal shipping times.
Yeah.
So the package, you go to UPS tracking and it might say it's in Georgia, but it's not in Georgia. It's still in Connecticut. And they're saying, yeah, but it's been 2 days, so technically it probably should be in Georgia. But then when you go to UPS and you're like, look, this package got lost in Georgia. It's been there for 4 days. They were like, no, we don't actually. The last scan we have is in Connecticut. We're like, no, it was in Georgia. They're like, no, it never actually went to Georgia. We just said it did because it should be there by now. I was like, that's a bunch of crap. That's not tracking. That's guessing.
Yeah, well, Post Office does that too, because also something will say arrived somewhere, and then there's no action for like 36 hours, and all of a sudden it says arrived at your post office. Like, I know there's another stop they just skipped and it didn't get scanned.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I don't worry about a book until it's shipped. But whenever something's in transit, that's the worst for me because you never know. It's risky and you can't keep up on it no matter how good the tracking is sometimes. So I would rather have a seller that ships once a week or like 2 weeks, like you say. If I know they haven't shipped it yet, I don't have any anxiety because I know it's still there. But once it does ship, whether it's the next day or 2 weeks later, I'm fine with that. Whatever it is, just tell me I can't ship it for 2 weeks. That's fine, whatever. Once it's shipped, then I'm a nervous wreck about it because so many things can happen to these packages in transit.
Yeah, I go the PO box route. I have a PO box, and I have a pretty good relationship at my post office because, like you said, you're in and out of there buying and selling so much and sending packages that they kind of know you after a while. And so I have a box there set up, and they actually were the ones that came up with the solution because my dog, he's getting up there in years, my outside dog, and he used to only like Pizza Hut delivery guys. Like that used to be the only ankle that he ever tried to nip. But now I guess he kind of likes U.S. Postal Service and also like the meter readers for the electric company. So he's broadened his palate. And so the delivery guys, they won't come to the house anymore. So I kept getting these slips in my box saying that I had to go pick up my package at the post office. Well, shoot, man, I work all day and I'm not in the same area. So I can do it, but it's a pain in the butt to go get a book like at lunch or something. So they were like, well, why don't you get a post office box? And anytime this happens, we'll just put it in the post office box. I said, okay. So it was they came up with the idea, and I've loved it. I've been doing it for years. It works great, and I'll never go back because then I get a little key. I go get it out of the parcel locker whenever I'm home, whenever I get back, whenever I'm ready. I just go there and I pick it up. It's always waiting for me. So, and if there's anything to sign, I usually get it on a Saturday, or I will make the special trip at lunch to go pick it up because it's usually something really good, right? If you got to sign for it, it's worth the trip.
And sometimes I like a signature, and sometimes I don't want a signature. If it's expensive, I want a signature on it because even if I miss it, at least I know it'll go back to the post office. But the other stuff, like the cheaper flip books I buy, that I'm willing to take more risk at, I don't want a signature on that. I just want to know when it's been delivered to my front porch, and I'm close enough from work. I'll just drive over and grab it, and I'm not too worried about it, But at higher end stuff, I like to have a signature because then even if I miss it, I'll at least know it's safe. So, but the most important thing is the tracking because then I can see when something's delivered, when something's coming. I can plan ahead. So, if there's no tracking, that's the worst. But anyway, I hear Miss DS came home, so I'm gonna get off of here.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could tell by the nervousness in your voice that Miss DS. Now we used to tease and we used to say that that Mrs. DS was probably like some pretty mean lady with a giant rolling pin, and she'd beat him all the way up the stairs if he stayed on the chat too long. But now that I've met Mrs. DS, I know that that's not the case. He's just eager to get up and greet her. So that's cool,
I'm very lucky. I've got very lucky finding her. So I like to be happy.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you guys are having a good time, and of course I'm very happy with Mrs. BUB'S too. I'm too blessed. Really, it's ridiculous. I don't know that I don't deserve her. I feel like I work hard, but but I'm very happy to have her. All right, guys. So thank you, everybody in the chat. It's been very lively. I'm sorry if we didn't shout everybody out. Roger does that. He's not here, so so sorry if we didn't catch you all. But glad to have you guys here, and we will not be on next week. So sorry to tell you, we won't be here next week. We've got some other stuff going on, but the week after that, of course, we will be back, and we'll have all this streaming figured out and ready to go. I think this will probably work. So we'll see make sure that Roger can get on there. So, all right, DS, good to see you. And if you want to sign off, and we'll catch you when we catch you.
All right, everybody, do your homework. Thanks for everybody for being here. We had a pretty good crowd, and it was a really good time. So, I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
All right, thanks. And so this is BUB'S Comics also signing off and saying thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll catch you next time in No Faces Comic Chat. We miss you, Roger, and we'll see you back on the next show. Have a good one, and don't forget to read a comic. Thanks. Bye.